Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Greybeards at Beastwerx podcast. And with me, as always, on this semi-beautiful, extremely hot day here in Norman, Oklahoma, on the campus of the University of Oklahoma. We're going to welcome from Washington, D.C., from Virginia, actually, right? Beltway
Don't
out
put me in
there.
a swamp.
Ken Campbell, former military intelligence and naval special operations, who has operated a lot in the Middle East and Persian Gulf area. And Bob Sands, Hall of Fame investigative journalist in the Oklahoma Journalism Hall of Fame, as I am.
Yes.
So we got two Okies and a Virginian. And Bobby, you wake... Yeah, I wake up every morning and go, there's still tens of thousands of American troops,
just sitting,
sailors, airmen, Marines out there somewhere in the Persian Gulf region, and no one's talking about it, but the war continues, right, Bobby? What are you saying?
It continues, absolutely. And, we're helping those tankers sneak through the Strait of Hormuz by hugging the coast of Oman. And I've got a chart. We can get to that a little bit later, but it's really wild to watch how these huge ships are negotiating all of this. And the chart and the graphics show very clearly what they're doing. So we can get into that here in a little bit, but oil still is not flowing worth a crap through the Strait of Hormuz. No matter what the administration says, it's still choked. There's not hardly anything getting through. About 1 million barrels a day, if they're lucky.
Well, hey, let me ask you this, because we were, hearing throughout the summer that once we hit July and reserves were at a certain level, a very low level, which I think we're near, it was going to be oil prices at 150 a barrel, and everything was going to explode in the world energy market. But it keeps trucking along, it seems like, I mean, were people crying wolf too soon, or what's happening? Do you have any idea?
You could see by this graph, 0.04 million barrels in the last 24 hours got through the Strait of Hormuz.
And how many normally would go through there?
Well, normally it'd be over $20 million. $20 million? Sorry, 20 million barrels. Yeah. Let me pull up there's a tanker that got through. Here, let me just show you the track on this. Now, some of these guys are following, doing really well, and they're getting through, and voila, here they are sitting over here at Oman right now.
Those got to be paying the freight. That's going right through the Iranian.
That's right smack dab through. But let me show you something else here. I'm going to stop this for just a second and get it out of here. There's another graph that's just, I think, very fascinating, that really shows what the heck they're up to. Here it is right here. Let me get this pulled up. They're turning off their transponders, and this is the result. Tankers can fly. Look at that. They can fly clear over Oman and right into the Gulf of Oman. They're turning off their transponder. So they're here, and then suddenly they're way over here. And that's how they're doing it. And universally, the ones who are getting through the most are Chinese ships, Indian ships, and Turkish ships. Those are the ones getting through.
So
and those are ones that are paying the
freight.
Paying the freight.
Yeah, that's it.
Right.
Well, related to that, can you put out an article, and please tell folks where they can find it, but there is no legal way through Hormuz right now is the title. Let me just read the first couple of graphs of this. The bottom line, you write, there is no legal way to move a tanker through the Strait of Hormuz right now. I do not mean that as a figure of speech. What do you mean there's no legal way? But there, no one's moving. Tell us about it. Explain it.
Yeah, no. So, it's really interesting. So commercial shipping, and maybe that wasn't the best title to use, but it's the one that got slapped on there. But commercial shipping is now caught between two governments. You got, Iran and the U.S., and both of them are issuing opposite orders. Iran is saying ships must obtain permission, and now they're calling it a fee for services versus a toll. That's an interesting, twist, and we can get into that a little bit here in a second. But they must obtain permission and pay fees, or face fines, detention, or the cargo could get seized. And on basically the same day that they made that pronouncement, the U.S. warned that giving into Iranian demands over Hormuz shipping may itself create sanctions exposure. And, what that means is that the United States could very well put those companies that go ahead and transit, paying the fee, wind up getting sanctioned. And in this case, what sanctions means is that their company, along with any other affiliate or associates, could be locked out of the international banking system. And that's really the lever that the United States has right now. World trade for the main still occurs in dollars. And, when dollars move, they eventually touch a U.S. financial institution. And when businesses get locked out by sanctions, those institutions, well, it blocks their ability to do business, certainly to get paid or pay. And so those are the kind of things that are in play now. You've got, Iran having set up a more formal regime, actually taking the issue to their, to the what is it, the Majlis, their version of Congress, and creating a preliminary law that talks about all the ins and outs of what they're going to impose on shipping and why. The interesting thing is they're no longer calling it a toll; they're calling it, payment for services, security and ecological related things, and then escort and whatnot. So, basically the kinetic action is stopped, and all this economic stuff is now in play.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where can people find that article?
So there's a number of places that I posted, or I should say we post. One is on Substack. Another is on X. I'm going ahead and putting a link on X to the Substack post.
Okay.
And then my LinkedIn profile. Facebook, if you're a Facebook aficionado, you can find me out there. And then of course we have the email distribution list, which is now well over 200. And we mass the emails. Hopefully, and I've said this, I think, for 6-7 weeks now, we'll get the website up and things will get posted there. But it's out there in a variety of platforms.
James Campbell or Beastwerx?
Yeah, that's searching. You'll find it under Ken Campbell.
Okay.
Substack is probably the best place to go.
Okay.
And you'll find me under Ken Campbell.
Search Ken Campbell. You'll find that.
And we're getting some pretty heavy readership. Some of the articles and whatnot, when you add it all up, 1,500 to 2,000 views in a 24-hour period.
Well, go out and read this, folks, because and that's what we do. I mean, Ken is expert at this. Bobby is the best at uncovering facts of anyone I've ever seen. And like Ken, I have a lot of experience in the Persian Gulf region and the Middle East over decades. And that's what we're trying to bring to you is our perspective. Not saying that we're right either, but we have a hell of a lot more background in knowing where this might be leading, and if it's if some of these, let's say we're now in the economic warfare part of it, if it's going to work or not. Yeah, and I'll give you an example, because we're Treasury Secretary Besant has the press conference and announces these possible sanctions. It's called a D-Day, Economic D-Day, but it feels to me, if you're going to use that D-Day analogy, it's like the landing craft on D-Day went halfway across the channel and just kind of hung there for a while, because to me, this doesn't feel like it's going to be a complete clampdown on sanctions. We're not going to sanction China. I mean, Scott Bessent said in his press conference, I'm not going to crash the world economy. So it's like, we're going to impose these sanctions, but wait, hold on. I'm not going to crash the world economy. But even without that, the world economy could crash, because I can't trust the oil or the energy markets. And I have the feeling there's some artificial stuff going on out there that continues to suppress prices.
Yes.
But not in, the prices that do not reflect what the real value is once that turns to gasoline, diesel, other things. I don't know. What do you think, guys?
Well, if I might, and then Bobby, because you've got you're right there in the heart of oil country and know a lot of people there that can probably provide great insight into this. But I think there's a combination of things. I think, number one, there's an adjustment being made to the reality here, which is this is heading into a protracted situation. And what I mean by adjustment is a combination of consumption maybe being down, as a reality of pricing and this sort of thing. And the markets, the markets are really strange with oil. If you go back and look at similar periods and whatnot. So, Bobby, I'd love to hear what your thoughts are, but I think there's an adjustment going on there. I'm not sure it's necessarily, a function of any one or several entities doing things behind the scenes. I think that there's just an adjustment that's occurring, and I'm seeing it in the stock market. Things have leveled out. The market is slowly coming back up. For every one step forward, it was taking 4 back. Now it seems to be 1 step forward and 1 or 2 steps back. Pending anything really dramatic coming out of the mouth of the great, Wonder Man, President Trump. So, but Bobby, please.
Yeah, you're very, very right. First off, Wall Street is not paying any attention to what Bessent is saying. Mike, you're absolutely correct. I mean, that D-Day thing was a nothing burger. I mean, we're going to call a bunch of people and threaten them if they help Iran. Well, give me a break, guys. That's going to happen no matter what. The shadow fleets are out there. The systems are long been in place. Iran has worked with sanctions for 50 years. They know how to deal with this stuff. Okay. And as far as the rest of the world is concerned, money talks. We all know that. And the rest of it, what? Walks. And that's it. So Wall Street's basically not paying much attention. Now, the bond market, that's gotten a little bit interesting. His buyback thing has made a bit of a difference. One of the things that I find very interesting, where is it here? Let's just go to the stuff here. As far as the come on, guys, cooperate with me here, would you? You know, this system that we use sometimes is a little flawed. Where are we? There we are. Okay, sorry about that. Right now, as far as the markets are concerned, they don't make a whole lot of sense. Here's what's happening with crude. It's down this morning, and this is within the last 30 minutes, down $2 on West Texas and down a little over $2 on Brent. So it's at 80 and 86. Now, last week it was over 90. So yeah, it's dropped a bunch. As far as the bond market is concerned, well, it's up a tick today, 1 basis point. It's still pretty high at 4.64. For the year, we're up 38 basis points, so that really hasn't changed. So Bessett's buyback thing isn't having a big effect. The current yield on the 30-year Treasury bond, it's basically steady. It's holding at 5.18%. Last week is 5.17, so it's up slightly. So what I'm getting at is all of this really not much has changed. Everything is pretty static. The oil prices, though, consumer demand is down, consumer spending is down, consumer confidence is down. All of those factors are playing right into the oil markets. If people aren't spending money, that's that.
Yeah, that's interesting, Bobby, because, as you're talking, I wanted to just see if I could find anything out there that really kind of sums this up. And I found something. It's really interesting. So, working models look something like this: physical market seriously impaired, inventory buffer rapidly declining, demand substantially destroyed, which we've been talking about because of price and impact on people's kitchen table and whatnot.
Yeah.
Alternative supply routes are partially compensating. Those pipelines coming across the Emirates to Oman or to the North Arabian Sea, and then Saudi Arabia and whatnot. But there's still about 8 to 10 million barrels locked in, per day, in terms of that 20 million that was getting through the strait prior to the conflict. But the other is that futures markets are betting on Hormuz normalization.
I would.
I don't know how that. Maybe after the midterms. Maybe that's part of it. And then this thing is called the geopolitical premium being discounted because traders had repeatedly seen negotiations interrupt escalation. That talking thing that goes on. But interesting.
Yeah, well, very much so.
I think basically the administration got this ass backwards. We start, supposedly we're negotiating, but all along planning the war, we started that in the winter, and that didn't work. Went on for months. Kinetic missiles flying back and forth. By some accounts, 15 of our bases in the Middle East destroyed. And then we go to negotiations. Now, the threat of, and I want to talk about this for a second on sanctions and my experience with sanctions and how effective they are, or can be if done right. But, the sanctions came after, and now you are getting reports starting to come out of Iran about basically a difference, a becoming more public difference of opinion between the military and religious leaders in Iran and the politicians in Iran. the politicians in Iran who don't have any power really, but are starting to say, we want to end this. And let's negotiate. We had really favorable terms under the Memorandum of Understanding. But IRGC is hardcore. The new leadership is hardcore. And those people that are where this dissent is boiling up from really don't have any power. Now, so sanctions against Iran, they've learned to live with them over the course of a half century almost. But I don't think that they're going to break under it. But let me go back, way back in my life to South Africa, where I was based from 1986 to late 88, early 89. And South Africa, apartheid South Africa, the world had imposed sanctions. The U.S. was actually dragging its feet more. The Europeans were hitting those sanctions a lot harder against South Africa. South Africa, and, as I said, I lived there. The South Africans learned to live with those sanctions, but it made life increasingly, incrementally more difficult. And eventually, drip by drip by drip, it became a torrent, an economic torrent that really forced the apartheid leadership of South Africa to change. And you had Nelson Mandela released, and I was there that day and got to meet him that day. He came back to Soweto and talked to him. And sanctions did work there, but these sanctions were relatively consistent. There was sanctions breaking going on, and with the complicity of Black African nations, because I can remember flying from Johannesburg during that extreme sanctions period and getting on a Swiss Air flight to Nairobi. Now, you weren't supposed to get off the plane because there were sanctions in place and there was no direct air travel outside of the frontline states that border South Africa. There was no, you weren't able to fly elsewhere in Africa. Well, it wasn't true because you could bribe your way through once you hit Nairobi, bribe your way through, and that's what we do. We had an office in Nairobi as well, get off the aircraft. We had our bags taken off, and we'd get off in Nairobi. But I can remember every time we'd land in Nairobi, you'd look off the taxiway and to the right, you'd see what were called Sapphire freighters. That was South Africa's FedEx, basically. And these South African, C-130 freighters would be lined up in Nairobi, and goods were going back and forth from Africa into there. So there was sanctions breaking going on. And as I said, with the complicity of some Black African nations with the apartheid government. But these sanctions against South Africa, it went on for a long period of time. This didn't happen in 1 year, 5 years, 10 years. It was decades of pressure. Now, the question is, does that example apply to what we're seeing in the Persian Gulf? Is that where we're headed? That we're going to have, more decades of economic pressure against Iran. What I think will happen is the Strait of Hormuz will become more irrelevant to the world economy because people, are going to find, humans always find a way around an obstacle.
Yep.
And they're going to find other ways to get that oil out. And they already are, and pipelines being built west that will, that would take the oil to the Red Sea and in the through the Bab el-Mandeb Straits, but that's an issue because the Houthis are controlling that and still attacking shipping there, or through the Suez Canal. So, I think we're in this period right now where of a list of all bad options, this is the least bad option right now. But nothing's going to happen overnight. And in the meantime, we've got all of that military force out there. But, in the 6 months since the war has begun, or the conflict between the U.S. and Iran has begun, the world has changed for America. Certainly the map of the Middle East and our influence has changed. We've become weaker in that period of time. And so our only hope, I think, are sanctions. But I don't trust that the Trump administration is going to follow through. The threats that come from the administration have become meaningless because we always back off those threats. We used everything up front. And what more is there to do? Really nothing, except for sanctions.
Yeah, well,
and finding a way to declare victory.
Yeah, and in this case, even though these sanctions that are being imposed include secondary sanctions on, companies, institutions, governments that provide support to Iran or trade with Iran, and that's what it says in certainly the sanctions language. And there's 5 new sectors that are being looked at for enforcement or now being implemented. China, you got to remember, China buys roughly 9 out of every 10 barrels coming out of Iran. And, the whole point of the campaign, really comes down to that country, And so the campaign's hardest edge, these sanctions, require Washington to punish, Chinese institutions, and I doubt very much that's going to happen.
Well, if you want to pick one part of the world where they're pretty good at finding a way around, or I tell you what, who are expert at smuggling, it's that part of the world. They invented it. That and assassins,
Yeah.
and they're gonna, let's say the bordering countries are facilitating land routes where goods and oil and everything else are being moved back and forth on these back roads and everything that go north, east, and west. It's surrounded by countries where there are literally tens of thousands of smuggling routes that you can't cover. And you can, more than anybody, knows about the difficulty of trying to isolate those and find those who are violating sanctions, because in Afghanistan you ran something called counter-threat finance, which that was kind of your job. Can you tell us what counter-threat finance was and the lessons you learned about trying to go after those people and cut off their funding sources that were helping to fund the Taliban and others and other insurgencies in Afghanistan, and the drug cartels that were operating, all of that?
Yeah, so counterfeit finance is really, from a 50,000 foot level, all about denying an entity that you're focused on asset value creation, the ability to move goods and commodities, cash, gold. So it's really about what you're seeing in the language on these sanctions. locking an entity out from being able to make money or asset value, or spend money or asset value, and take that, that ability away from them. Ostensibly, that creates problems for, feeding and arming an army or an insurgency or a terrorist group or similar. And it's complicated and it's slow. And in the case of my tour in Afghanistan, we had those levers. We built a program that had over 40 agencies involved, including State Department and Treasury, which provide for the sanctions related levers. But then under Title 10 authorities, we also had license to go kinetic. And in that particular case, we came up with a plan to hit supply lines and cantonment sites and labs, all associated with the production of opium to morphine based to heroin, and then also to go after the large or the bigger drug trafficking organizations, which were many, including, and then of course the Taliban had their fingers in it. Anywhere the Taliban controlled the ground, they were taxing, those that were involved in the drug trade. And so, those particular individual entities and their facilities would become, targets for kinetic action. So, in short, again, counter-threat finance is about ultimately denying an entity the ability to create asset value or spend or move asset value in order to support their operations and agendas.
And did it work? Or what were the difficulties of making it work?
That's a debatable question. It's funny because the real lever that we had was kinetic, and man, we went kinetic. And of course, that was during Trump 1. But this plan actually emanated adjunct to my discussions with the general staff for the Resolute Support U.S. 4A mission. And we focused on the narcotics because the Taliban made in excess of 50% of their asset value or revenue from that.
Yeah.
Now, it wasn't, certainly as well organized and structured like a Colombian cartel. It was very messy. And we came up with a plan of action that would go after, basically the supply chain, but not the peasants that were growing the product. We could talk ad nauseum about the heretofores and why and whatnot. Anyway, the bottom line is after 132 precision strikes, the psychological effect of that bombing campaign caused the Taliban to seek the first ever ceasefire and get more serious about the negotiations for the U.S. withdrawal. And that actually occurred about March of 2018. So did it work? I guess it just depends on how you view it from a tactical perspective. Yeah, I think it worked. It didn't necessarily preclude the Taliban from funding their operations and support structures and whatnot, but it did give them a stop pause, trying to figure out, just what the hell were we doing? Was this an indication that we were going to come back in full bore? What was going on? So, I'll just kind of leave it at that. But I've had mixed feelings about it coming out. That's a whole different story. But, at the end of the day, I think we did good work. What it really showed, Mike, is that sanctions and counter-threat finance, when properly applied, can do things. but it's very, very complicated, and it involves the, certainly the support and buy-in of others. Then the question is, at present, a lot of the world economy moves on dollars. Does that change over the next, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years? I guess it really depends upon, the U.S. administration and what happens as we move forward with our own politic.
Well, it seems to me the lessons I'd take away from Afghanistan and how it might relate to Iran and the counter threat finance and sanctions against the Taliban is that it has to be consistent, because I can remember, working in Helmand province, embedded with the Marines, and there'd be a new, we fought, we didn't fight an entire war over a long period of time. We fought 1-year wars because there'd be change of command every 1 year, and everyone had a different strategy. So at one point, I can remember the strategy was go after the poppy farmers, the opium fields, the labs, all of that. I can remember we went to one along near the Helmand River, one village that was a Taliban stronghold. The Taliban actually gave receipts to the farmers on the tax, and we found all of these receipts. And anyway, all this stuff was all the opium, the poppy plants, all of that was all gathered up and put in a gigantic pile out in the desert, and we're supposed to destroy it. And they were, the fire wasn't working, and they fired mortars at it and all of that. And this is not hyperbole. In the end, the way
I'm laughing because I was involved in a 5 million pound burn that was conducted with great ceremony just outside of Kabul. And I'm watching them. So they dug a big trench up to the pile of narcotics and all this contraband. It included everything from opium to heroin to morphine to pills to weed to whatever, right? They dug this big trench, and then they brought this fuel truck in, and they went ahead and flooded that trench with fuel oil or gasoline, right? And they backed the truck up just a little bit, and they're getting ready to light this thing up. And I'm standing next to the probably one of the best commanders that the government had. Is actually the commander of the Special Narcotics Police, which were just superb door kickers, and they did a lot of work with DEA and what. Anyway, so I'm looking at the colonel and I'm going, do you think we need to back up a little bit? Because that fuel truck is sitting right on top of this mess. And then when they light this off, we're all downwind of it, right?
Yeah.
And so when we go back to the base, we have to get these medical chits signed in our record that, we were part and parcel to this whatever. And if we pop positive for any reason, it's because of this.
Well,
Can't make this shit up.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it was, and in the end, in our pile of drugs and poppy plants and all of that stuff, they actually, absolutely true, they called in the B-52 strike. They bombed, a B-50.
Oh my God!
B-52 was loitering, and they finally, this thing went on all afternoon trying to figure out how we're going to destroy all these drugs. My point is, the next command of in Afghanistan came in and decided that, wait a second, we were pissing off the farmers and they were turning against us, and so we're not going to go after all of this. We're going to pull back from that sort of action. So it was inconsistent,
right?
And that was my point. The inconsistencies, it didn't work. If it would have been constant pressure applied, but the inconsistencies made it ineffective.
Yeah, and to go back to Iran, you throw out all these sanctions. China's the biggest trading partner, in terms of the oil. And I don't see any sanctions being applied there. So,
and that's not going to happen.
yeah,
No,
right.
it's not.
I mean, and when's Trump going to China? In a couple of weeks?
Oh yeah, and then what? He's going to North Korea.
Yeah.
Let us all be friends.
And these are all the people who are the biggest, I mean, who aren't just trading with Iran. They are,
Supporting
they're getting
Iran.
help,
We're talking China. We're talking North Korea. And what? When does he go visit Putin? When does he go visit his
Well, we just said
dear brother?
we just sent our top spy over there.
Yeah,
so I guess
is that what that
about
plane
that?
was that landed that was being tracked by I saw a note that popped up in one of my monitoring solutions that there was a C-17 or something that just showed up in Moscow.
Yeah.
A military aircraft or something like that. Was that what that was all about? I missed that.
Yeah. I mean, I think it was a C-17 he flew in on, right, Bobby?
I believe that's correct. I believe.
Yeah.
I'm not positive, but yeah.
Something's going on.
Something's going on. We don't do that every day.
No.
Something's up.
And
hey guys, hold off, man, because we got to win the midterms.
Yeah.
And then we can all go back to fucking the world. Yes.
Yeah, no, I think it may be too late on that for the Republicans to
don't edit that fuck out.
Pull this out, or the economy.
I'm giving fuckery to the podcast now. I'm sorry.
You got thoughts on all this bullshit we're talking about here, Bobby?
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing I just got to share. I love this visual. We were talking about diversions. This is the Suez Canal at the moment. 135 tankers are clogged, waiting to get in or out.
My God.
So you could see where the oil's going. And, and if we shrink this down a little bit and go down to one of your guys' favorite places, Bab el-Mandeb, there's 7 tankers, 7 vessels, 10 tankers.
Yeah.
Slide over here, and we're all of a sudden at the Strait of Hormuz, we have 15 tankers there. So where's the oil really going out? Right up here, the Suez Canal.
And going through the Suez Canal, if you're a super tanker, you got to offload that oil.
Yes.
And then it's pumped up to the Med, to an Egyptian port, and then it's reloaded.
Got to pick it back up. Yeah.
So a super tanker can't transit the Suez.
No, it's got to be
not loaded.
It's not completely loaded, because it's too shallow for that.
Yeah, it's too shallow.
So it's a real pain, and it's gumming up the works. I mean, the one place where probably right now, if you wanted to use military action, but it's that's tough.
Then you're going to get the Egyptians and everybody involved.
Well, no, but I'm talking the Bab el-Mandeb, and the Houthis. I mean, if where you might be able to build a coalition, and we don't have a lot of friends out there right now, but where we might be able to build one is an international effort to shut down the Houthis.
Yeah.
And that would improve things dramatically, because the Saudis are already pumping a ton of oil west. If that would open up, it would relieve a lot of pressure.
Well, and the Houthis are doing this because Saudi Arabia has put sanctions on them and blockade. And so it appears that it's a more narrow issue, per se, than certainly the Houthis exercising kinetic action at the whim and whistle of Iran. The Houthis make their own decisions about what they're going to do and when.
Yeah.
So, and while they'll do some of the Iranian bidding, and obviously they've got IRGC officers in there and they're getting support, they don't necessarily execute again at the demand of the Iranian military command.
Well, did we answer anything this morning? I think.
Yeah, man. Situation normal. All fucked up.
All fucked up. That's
Oh,
exactly what I
fuck,
was just thinking.
situation normal.
Fubar.
Foobarred.
Yeah.
Big time.
Yeah,
You know?
no.
And then when they open their mouths and they talk peace and whatever, Trump come out and say,
So what coffee
just
cup are you sporting there, Ken?
do what now?
What coffee cup are you sporting there?
U.S. Navy
Navy.
Explosive Ordnance Disposal, and that's my class number 3B82.
Uh-huh.
And then the logo on the back, initial success or total failure. Always cut the blue wire.
Always cut the blue wire.
Always cut the blue wire. It's always the blue wire. It's not the red.
Yeah, you got more balls than I got. I could
buddy.
not do
Oh,
that.
Big
BS.
time.
As you're sitting there thinking through how you're not going to get your head blown off by terrorists down in Latin America.
Oh God! Hey, Latin America, that may come up soon enough for us.
And
I'm waiting for that pivot.
You're forever codified in that superb documentary you did, the Hornets.
The Hornets Nest.
I mean, I just can't believe what you did, and every time I listen to that section where you're on the very steep slope, and you guys are getting
Yeah,
you take a lot of incoming, and you're yelling for Carlos,
yeah.
your son, who's the cameraman.
Carlos was, he was. We were, there was. There's nothing like getting trapped on the side of a treeless mountain with snipers shooting at you, and all you can do is lay flat behind the slightest little berm that if you move a half inch, you're going to get shot. And then finally saying, well, I got to get out of here. And then,
and then
inshallah, I got to go. Right. I'm going to go. And if you just come to the conclusion.
Got to get off that X.
Got to get off that. If I'm going to go, I'm not going to die here lying on my back. But anyway, as long as you're on YouTube watching us here on the Greybeards of Beastwerx, go over and check out the Hornets Nest. You can find it on any streaming service, but you can find it on YouTube. Anyway, that was. All of us have unique experiences, so that's what we're trying to do is present that to you and try to make some sense of this. But right now, I think we're stuck in the beginnings of an economic war against Iran, and effective or not, who the hell knows? It's a matter of consistency and applying that, not applying it to the weak, just to the weaker people countries, the stands that border Iran. But you have to do that against China, and you have to do that against North Korea, and I think all of us know that that's not going to happen with that. So I think we start off with the hollow threat, and I'm not optimistic that this is going to work either, just because of that. So anyway,
Mike,
hey, guys,
what happens?
Huh?
Just real quick, what happens? I want to hear from you and Bobby before we shut this down.
Yeah.
Where do you think the midterms are going, and what do you think happens after that? Depending upon your thinking on this.
The speaker, the leader of the Democrats in the House, Congressman Jeffers, made it very clear this week on CNN. If they win the House, which it appears they're going to, and they might very well flip the Senate also, we'll see what happens. The polls, that's what we're all basing it on. But the sentiment of the people right now is not positive toward what's going on with the Republican Party or the president. The president's the deepest political hole he's ever been in, pollster-wise. But Jeffers made it clear. They win, they investigate. Every last one of the Trump administration people will be under investigation. So that's what we're facing.
And the impact on this debacle that we're in with Iran?
Well, hopefully cooler heads prevail.
I think the impact is in broken promises.
Yes.
Rather than economic hardship. I think, those are, Trump said we're not going to get into these kinds of wars, and sure enough, we did. And it was hubris that got us into that because, oh, well, we did it in a day, and in Venezuela, take a couple of days in Iran. But I think certainly the economy is an issue and affordability, but I think it comes down to trust. And I was trying to analyze what happened in Oklahoma last night because there was a very contentious race for the Republican gubernatorial nomination. There was a runoff, and the Trump endorsed candidate beat the Republican attorney general by around 2,000 votes.
Yeah.
But consider this: Mike Mazzei, who was the one who won, was endorsed by the sitting president of the United States. The Republican Party in a primary runoff, they endorsed Mazzei because the Oklahoma Republican Party is run by the Trump apparatus. And out of how many, I don't know, whether it was 125, 150,000 votes cast, I'm not sure, Bobby, but it was, he only won by 2,000 votes
2,000
over
votes.
the non-Trump endorsed candidate. If you look to the east of us, and so that indicates to me that, he got, 50-some thousand votes? I don't have the exact in front of me, Bobby, but if you can pull it up and see what it was. But, there are a lot of other Trump-endorsed gubernatorial candidates who have lost, senatorial candidates, and others who have lost. In Arkansas, if you look to the east of us, very red as well, kind of like Oklahoma, but with hills and lakes. Arkansas, Tom Cotton is in a tough race against a Democrat there. I mean, they're neck and neck, and that never happens in Arkansas. And so I think the signs are there. It's too late, I think, to turn that ship around economically. If anything happens in, good in Iran to turn things around. But I think it's, in the bottom line, getting back to it's a matter of taste. Okay, so I'm sorry, I was way behind.
No, that's okay. But there's the spread right there. It was 2,000 votes. 2,000 votes. And so the Republican Party in Oklahoma is totally divided on who should be the next governor, at least from the Republican Party. That's totally split in half, 50-50.
Yeah, and again, think about this. Parties don't endorse candidates in their primaries. Well, Mazzei knew, the guy who won knew he was in trouble. You had the sitting president endorsing you, and they had ad after ad after ad all day long saying the Trump endorsed candidate. You had the Republican Party endorse him, and out of over 300,000 votes cast in that primary, half of them went to a candidate. And what's going to happen, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Does that half of the Republican Party sit on their hands in this coming
if they do, we're going to have our first Democratic governor in many, many, many years.
Yeah. So, there's a battle right now for the heart and soul of the Republican Party. The Trump endorsement doesn't carry the weight it used to, and apparently not the Republican endorsement in a Republican primary. He did win, but it was like 2,000 votes.
Yes.
I would say Drummond is a more moderate candidate. Mazzei was more of a MAGA candidate. And then, coming up in the general election, now the Democrats are going to vote. So does a Republican Party that's divided and Democrats are united against Trump-endorsed candidates, does that result in surprise victories? That is going to be the big question going in to the midterm elections. And I don't see the economy, affordability issues, the war, all coming to positive conclusions by November.
No, not going to happen. Not going to happen.
Not going to happen.
Okay. That's for sure.
Okay, guys. Well, it was a pleasure talking to you all this morning. We'll be back soon, everyone, with the Greybeards of Beastwerx to try to give you some insight and what's going on in a dangerous world from three old farts who think they know everything. Well, we don't know shit, but anyway, we try. Okay, guys. Love you guys.
See you later, brothers.
Bye.